Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing something a bit different. We're going to talk all about podcasts because I don't know if you know, but I am a big fan of podcasts. So I'm going to share all my favorites with you. Without further ado, let's get into it. So I think we're going to separate those podcasts in different categories because I kind of like a little of everything. My first category is business and entrepreneurship oriented podcasts. Then we have health and wellness, and finally kind of like girly chit chats that I like to listen to. So for the business and entrepreneurship category, the nominees are The Skinny Confidential, Him and Her, The Dream Bigger podcast by Siff, Haider, The Diaries of a CEO, and the mylett show. I would definitely recommend you listen to all four of them. They're all amazing and they provide so much value. But if I had to choose just two, then I think I would go with The Skinny Confidential, Him and Her, and The Dream Bigger podcast. Here's why. So if you don't know The Skinny Confidential, it's basically Lauryn Bosstick and Michael Bosstick. They're a power couple, but Lauryn started out as this OJ blogger in the days. I follow her since like 13 years, which is just insane. And I think they started the podcast before they got married. I'm not sure about that. But then Michael Bosstick actually founded the Dear Media podcast network, and now they're just like this powerhouse. It's just crazy when you look at their growth and how much they've exploded the past few years. They're just very, very inspiring as a couple. They have two beautiful kids, but that's beside the point. The podcast in itself is very interesting because they bring on the show people, founders, entrepreneurs from different backgrounds. And while some podcast guests have been a bit controversial, I kind of like to listen to everyone. You know, you don't need to agree with everyone, but I feel like it's just so interesting when you have someone that has a completely different idea of life or way of life than you. I think it's so much more enriching in general. So I really like it for that reason, but also they're very real, they're no BS, and a lot of great tips just like emerge from the episodes. So I definitely recommend you. The second podcast that I was talking to you about is the Dream Bigger podcast by Siff, Haider. So Siff, Haider is basically the founder of Arrae. She founded it with her husband, and Arrae is this supplement company. I think they're mostly known for their bloating capsules. I really want to try them, but I don't know where to buy it in Asia. She's very young, inspiring. She built this from ground up, and it's just incredible. And she brings a lot of guests that are female founders or creators on her show, and they really leave you with the most tangible and concrete like advice and tips that you can actually implement in your life even if you don't have the same line of work. So I really appreciate that from her. And what I'm gonna say is she does those solo episodes that I actually really love. She gets really personal and really granular about everything that she does. So I definitely recommend that you give it a listen. The next category we have is the health and wellness category. And the nominees are The Genius Life with Max Lugavere, On Purpose with Jay Shetty, The Huberman Lab, and The Move with Heart with Melissa Woodhealth. So again, those fours are like what I listen to all the time, so I definitely recommend all of them. But if I had to choose two, then I would say The Genius Life with Max Lugavere and the On Purpose show with Jay Shetty. So I am really into nutrition, and sometimes I feel like nutrition can be so complicated and scientific and so confusing, and it can be kind of like overwhelming as to where you should be starting with and what information you should actually rely on. And I really like this podcast because Max Lugavere is actually like a nutrition journalist. He has a very interesting story because basically his mom faced this degenerative disease, and so he was kind of like dedicating his life to finding a cure and help his mom, and along the way he just had all those findings that he is sharing. And so I have learned so much from him. He actually also has a book called Genius Foods. If you want to kind of like get in nutrition, I feel like this is the perfect book to start with. It's not overly complicated. He really makes information digestible, no pun intended, but I really appreciate everything that he shares. And he also brings really qualified guests on the show, whether they are scientists or doctors or neurologists, like all the things. And even if the guests are such high calibers, I just feel like you don't really have to be a nerd to understand what they're talking about. And I feel like, for instance, if you compare it to the Huberman Lab, which is very like in-depth, like all the episodes are over 2 hours, I think the Genius Life is a softer start to the nutrition world. So yeah, definitely recommend that one. And then obviously On Purpose with Jay Shetty. I think for this show, Jay Shetty is definitely, why I chose it, because his personality is just like so warm and his voice is so calming. Like, he actually looks like an angel and it feels like a hug when you're listening to him. So I just love listening to him in general. But then I must say, I don't listen to all of the episodes because most of his guests are kind of like celebrities. I am mainly listening to the ones that I know. But in general, I feel like it's a very calming space. So I definitely recommend that one. But I feel like everyone listens to him already, so it's not a big revelation I'm doing here. The next category is Girlie Chitchats. On this category, the nominees are Pretty Basic, Lady Gang, Anything Goes with Emma Chamberlain, Making Moves with Taylor King. So for this category, I usually listen to that either when I am doing some light work and I don't actually need to like fully focus on what they're saying, or when I'm going on a walk, or when I'm having lunch somewhere. It's basically like hanging with like other girlfriends and just having a good time. I think my favorite might be, I really like the Lady Gang. So it's this trio, Becca, Tobin, Keltie, Knight, and Jack Vanek. And they just are like so funny. Like, they are very different from one another and they're very real and they're just like hilarious. I just love listening to them, and they're also really into pop culture. So you get a little gossip, you get a little personal. It's fun. The next one I would recommend, that is very hard. So I think Pretty Basic, if you know the founders, it's even more fun, because for me, I've watched Alisha's channel on YouTube for like years now, like maybe 10 years. So I just feel like I know her in some way. It's very weird, like it's very comfort kind of podcast. It's full of inside jokes, that stuff. I like it because, as I said, it's a bit of my comfort podcast. The other one I would definitely recommend is Making Moves with Taylor King. She's a female content creator and she does interview a lot of like creators and female entrepreneurs, and it's just very fun and light and still with a lot of value. And even her solo episodes, I admit, I actually really like, because she gets real and it's really like you're hanging out with like a girly pop, so it's fun. However, I must say that she does have some episodes where it's like crossovers, and unless you're listening to it while watching the YouTube video, a lot of people are talking at the same time, it can be a bit messy, but definitely give it a listen. So yeah, I think that concludes my top most recommended podcast. I want to know, what is your favorite podcast, because I'm always on the lookout for a new one to include to my little playlist. So definitely let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, then like and subscribe. It means the world. I say it all the time, but it actually does mean the world to me, because I'm really trying to like be more consistent on YouTube and level up my YouTube game. So give it a little subscribe, it'll help your girl out, and I'll see you very soon for our next video.